Zara Chen pressed her palm against the crystalline scanner for the third time. The Hall of Bloodlines remained silent, its ancient doors sealed shut like they had been for the past 6 months. Around her, other hopefuls from across the galaxy waited in the massive queue, their alien forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes under the golden dome of the Galactic Heritage Center. "Next," called the mechanical voice of the processing unit. Zara stepped forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it, her last chance to prove her heritage before the Galactic Council decided humanity's fate. The scanner hummed to life, bathing her in blue light. DNA analysis, genetic mapping, bloodline verification, all the tests that would determine if she carried the blood of the ancient guardians. The same tests that had failed her repeatedly. Subject Zara Chen, human, Earth colony designation Terra 7. Bloodline scan, negative. Guardian heritage. Not detected. Access to Hall of Bloodlines. Denied. The voice was cold. Final. Zara's shoulders sagged. Behind her, she heard the disappointed murmurs of the other humans in line. They had pinned their hopes on her, the last descendant of Admiral Sarah Chen, one of humanity's greatest heroes. If anyone should carry guardian blood, it should be her. "Please step aside," the machine continued. "Next candidate." As Zara moved away from the scanner, she caught sight of the Corvani delegation watching from their elevated platform. Ambassador Thexmore's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The reptilian diplomat had been pushing for humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council for years, claiming humans were too young, too violent, too unpredictable for civilized space. Another failure, Thexmore's translator device announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Perhaps now the Council will see that humans have no place among the ancient races. No guardian blood, no legitimate claim to galactic citizenship. Zara clenched her fists. The Corvani had been testing the bloodlines of every species for months, using some ancient law that required proof of guardian heritage to maintain council membership. So far, every major species had produced at least one descendant. Even the insect-like Hivetal had found 3 individuals with the sacred bloodline. Only humanity had failed. The problem was, nobody really knew what guardian blood meant anymore. The Guardians had vanished over 10,000 years ago, leaving behind only their massive space stations, mysterious technology, and strict genetic requirements for accessing their most sacred sites. The Hall of Bloodlines was one such site, containing archives that supposedly held the secrets of faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and other technologies that had shaped galactic civilization. Zara, her friend Marcus, pushed through the crowd, his dark face grim. The councils made their decision. Emergency session in 1 hour. If we can't produce a guardian descendant by then, he didn't need to finish. Zara knew what would happen. Humanity would be stripped of council membership, their colonies relocated to the outer rim, their trade agreements voided. 50 billion humans scattered across 100 worlds would become second-class citizens overnight. There has to be something we're missing, Zara muttered, staring at her hands. My grandmother always said our family was special, that we had a duty to protect something important. Maybe she was just being dramatic, Marcus suggested gently. Lots of families have stories about their ancestors. But Zara shook her head. No, it was more than that. She used to have these dreams, Marcus. Dreams about silver ships and crystal cities. She'd wake up speaking words in a language nobody recognized. Before Marcus could respond, a commotion erupted near the hall's entrance. The massive doors, which had remained sealed for centuries, were beginning to glow. Ancient symbols appeared along their surface, pulsing with inner light. What's happening? Someone shouted. The crowd pressed forward as the symbols grew brighter. Then, impossibly, the doors began to open. Not for any of the verified guardian descendants, but on their own, as if responding to some invisible signal. Ambassador Thexmore's voice cut through the amazed murmurs. This is impossible. The doors only open for confirmed bloodlines. There must be a malfunction, but the ancient technology showed no signs of malfunction. The doors continued their slow, majestic swing inward, revealing a corridor that seemed to stretch into infinity, and from somewhere deep inside came a sound. Not quite music, not quite speech, but something that made every human in the crowd feel a strange tugging in their chest. Zara felt it strongest of all. The pull was like gravity, like magnetism, like coming home after a long journey. Without thinking, she took a step toward the entrance. Wait! Thexmore slithered forward on his serpentine lower body. No one may enter without proper verification. The law states that only Guardian descendants may enter, interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned to see a figure approaching from the diplomatic section. Tall, ethereal, with pale blue skin and silver hair that seemed to move in an invisible breeze. Avextai, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. Counselor Yarthen. Thexmore hissed, his translator struggling with what sounded like curses in his native tongue. Surely you don't suggest that these humans have somehow triggered the door? Yarthen's ancient eyes fixed on Zara. The Hall recognizes what the Hall recognizes, Ambassador. Our scanners are crude instruments compared to Guardian technology. Perhaps we have been looking for the wrong markers. The Vextai moved closer to Zara, studying her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Child of Terra, step forward. Zara glanced at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Heart-pounding, she approached the entrance. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, the corridor blazed with light. Symbols raced along the walls and the musical sound grew stronger. From deep within the hall came another sound, the steady, rhythmic beating of something vast and mechanical, like a heart made of crystal and starlight. Impossible, Thexmore breathed. But Yarthen was smiling, the first expression Zara had ever seen on the ancient diplomat's face. Not impossible, Ambassador, simply unexpected. The Guardians, it seems, were more creative in their preservation methods than we understood. The beating from within the hall grew stronger, more urgent. Whatever was waiting inside, it was waking up. And somehow Zara knew it was waking up for her. What do I do? She whispered. Yarthen's silver eyes held depths of knowledge accumulated over millennia. You walk forward, descendant of the stars. You reclaim what was always yours. Behind them, the crowd held its breath as Zara Chen, failed candidate and last hope of humanity, stepped into the Hall of Bloodlines to meet her destiny. The corridor stretched ahead like a dream made of light and crystal. Zara's footsteps echoed in the vast space, each sound seeming to awaken new symbols along the walls. The musical humming grew stronger with every step, and she realized it wasn't coming from the hall itself. It was coming from inside her own chest, as if her heartbeat had synchronized with something ancient and powerful. Behind her, she could hear the commotion at the entrance. Thexmore was demanding that the council intervene, while other voices argued about protocol and precedent. But their words seemed to fade as she walked deeper into the hall, replaced by something else. Whispers in a language she didn't recognize but somehow understood. Welcome home. Daughter of distant stars. Zara spun around, but the corridor was empty. The whisper seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, carried on the air itself. Who's there? She called out, her voice small in the vast space. We are here. We have always been here. We have been waiting. The corridor opened into a chamber so enormous that Zara couldn't see the ceiling. Floating in the center was a sphere of pure light, about the size of a small moon, pulsing gently like a sleeping giant's heart. Around it orbited dozens of smaller orbs, each one containing what looked like swirling galaxies of information. The archive, she breathed, recognizing it from her grandmother's stories. But those stories had been vague, dreamlike. Nothing had prepared her for the reality of standing in the presence of something so obviously ancient and powerful. Approach, child. Let us see what you carry within you. Zara walked toward the central sphere, her legs trembling. As she got closer, she could see that the light wasn't uniform. It was made up of billions of tiny symbols, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves like living text. When she was just a few steps away, the sphere pulsed brighter, and suddenly Zara was no longer in the chamber. She was floating in space, looking down at a blue-green planet that definitely wasn't Earth. Ships hung in orbit around the world, not human ships, but sleek silver vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Long ago, the voice continued, and now Zara could see the speaker, a tall, graceful figure with features that were almost human but somehow more refined, more perfect. Long ago, when the galaxy was young and the first civilizations were taking their first steps into space, we walked among the stars as guardians and teachers. The vision shifted. Now Zara saw the guardians on a dozen different worlds, sharing knowledge with species she recognized, early versions of the Corvani, the Vextai, the Hivetal, and others. But they weren't just teachers. They were protectors, standing between young civilizations and the dark things that lurked in the spaces between stars. We gave them the gifts of faster-than-light travel, of energy manipulation, of genetic enhancement. We hoped to prepare them for the trials that would come, but we knew that our time was limited. Why? Zara asked, her voice echoing strangely in the vision space. The guardian figure turned to her with eyes that held the weight of eternity. Because we were not the first child, and we would not be the last. The galaxy moves in cycles, and each cycle brings new guardians to take the place of the old. We were preparing for our successors. The vision changed again. Now Zara saw the guardians gathering in vast councils, their faces grave with concern. But something went wrong. The young races we had nurtured began to see us not as teachers, but as rulers to be overthrown. They formed alliances against us, fearing that we would never step aside. Zara watched in horror as wars erupted across the galaxy. The Guardians' silver ships fought desperate battles against fleets of every species they had helped to develop. But the wars weren't what broke them. We could have won those conflicts easily, the Guardian continued. Our technology, our wisdom, our power, all far exceeded theirs. But victory would have proven their fears correct. We would have become the tyrants they accused us of being. So what did you do? The Guardian smiled sadly. We chose a different path. We scattered ourselves across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as seeds. We preserved our knowledge, our essence, our purpose in hidden places like this hall. And we waited. Waited for what? For a species young enough to still dream of stars, old enough to understand sacrifice, strong enough to face what's coming, and wise enough to know that true strength comes from protecting others rather than conquering them. The vision faded, and Zara found herself back in the chamber staring at the pulsing sphere. But now she understood what she was looking at. It wasn't just an archive. It was a consciousness, a collective memory of an entire civilization. The other species, she said slowly, the ones with guardian blood, they're not really descendants, are they? Some are. A few guardians chose to live quiet lives among the younger races, leaving their genetic legacy in traditional ways. But most of the bloodlines were engineered. Genetic markers inserted into promising individuals to ensure that each species would produce candidates when the time came. Zara felt a chill. And humans? We weren't here when you were active. We're too new. Yes, humanity emerged long after our physical forms had faded. You developed independently, without our guidance or interference, and that is precisely why you are so important. The sphere pulsed brighter, and suddenly Zara was filled with images, not visions of the past, but glimpses of possible futures. She saw human ships standing guard over refugee convoys. She saw human scientists sharing their discoveries freely with other species. She saw human soldiers throwing themselves into impossible battles to protect worlds they had never seen. The genetic markers we planted in other species were meant to preserve our knowledge and our power, but they also preserved our limitations, our ways of thinking, our mistakes. You carry none of that burden. But the scanner said I had no guardian blood. The scanner was looking for genetic markers we placed deliberately. It could not detect what we did not intentionally create. Your grandmother's dreams, the pull you felt toward this hall, the way the doors responded to your presence, these are not the result of ancient engineering. Zara's mind reeled. Then what are they? The Guardian's voice grew warm, almost proud. Evolution, child. Natural selection working across cosmic timescales. 10,000 years of human development have produced something we could not create artificially. A species naturally compatible with our deepest purposes, our truest nature. The sphere began to sink lower, until it was floating just above Zara's head. She could feel warmth radiating from it, and something else, a sense of vast potential, of doors waiting to be opened. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. Dark forces gather in the void between stars, drawn by the light of civilization itself. The ancient enemy that drove us from our physical forms has not forgotten this galaxy. They return, and when they do, they will seek to extinguish every flame of consciousness, every spark of hope. Zara looked up at the sphere, understanding dawning on her. And you want humanity to stop them. We want humanity to be what we could never be. Guardians who protect without ruling. Teachers who guide without controlling. Defenders who fight without conquering. The hall recognizes you not because you carry our blood, but because you carry our hopes. The sphere settled gently onto Zara's outstretched palms, and suddenly her mind exploded with knowledge. Star charts, weapon designs, shield technologies, FTL improvements that would make current drives look like stone wheels. It all flowed into her consciousness like water into a dry riverbed. But with the knowledge came responsibility, heavy as gravity itself. Zara staggered under the weight of newfound knowledge flooding her mind. Star maps showing hidden passages through dark space, weapon designs that could crack moons in half, shield technologies that bent reality itself. All of it crashed into her consciousness like a tidal wave. But worse than the technical information was the emotional burden that came with it. She could feel the Guardians' memories, their regrets, their failures. She saw civilizations they had been too late to save, worlds consumed by the darkness between stars. She felt their desperate hope that maybe, this time, someone could do better. Too much, she gasped, dropping to her knees as the sphere continued to pour information into her mind. It's too much. Peace, daughter, the Guardian voice whispered, and suddenly the flow slowed to a manageable trickle. We forget how fragile young minds can be. The knowledge will settle in time. For now, take only what you need to begin. The sphere lifted from her palms and settled back to its position above her head, but Zara could still feel the connection, like a warm wire running from her heart to the ancient consciousness. Begin what? She asked, struggling to her feet. The transformation. Humanity must be prepared for what's coming, but they cannot be forced into readiness. They must choose their path freely, as we should have allowed the earlier races to do. Footsteps echoed through the chamber, and Zara turned to see Marcus approaching cautiously, his eyes wide with amazement. Behind him came Counselor Yarthan, moving with the careful grace of the very old and very wise. Zara, Marcus called softly. Are you okay? You've been standing here for hours. Hours? Zara blinked in confusion. The conversation with the Guardian had felt like minutes. Time moves differently in the presence of the archive, Yarthan explained, studying the floating sphere with obvious reverence. I have waited 300 years to see this chamber active again. The sphere pulsed, and suddenly the Guardian's voice filled the space, audible to all of them. Yarthan Veleth, last speaker of the Vextai Council. You have served well in our absence. The ancient Vextai dropped to one knee, his silver hair shimmering. Guardian Archive. I have maintained the watchtowers as instructed. The Dark Fleet gathers strength beyond the rim. They will move soon. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Dark Fleet? The Devourers, Yarthan said grimly, rising to his feet. They consume the life force of entire species, leaving dead worlds in their wake. We have been tracking their movements for centuries, hoping to delay their return until new Guardians could arise. Marcus stepped closer to Zara, his hand moving protectively to the weapon at his belt. How many ships are we talking about? The sphere pulsed, and suddenly the chamber filled with a three-dimensional star map. Dark red points marked positions beyond the galactic rim, and there were thousands of them. By the void, Yarthan breathed. They have grown stronger than our projections indicated. Each ship carries weapons capable of cracking planetary shields, the Guardian voice explained. Their technology feeds on the terror and despair of dying civilizations. The more they consume, the more powerful they become. Zara studied the map, her new knowledge helping her understand the tactical situation. The Devourers were positioned at dozens of entry points around the galaxy's edge. When they moved, they would strike everywhere at once, overwhelming any coordinated defense. How long do we have? She asked. The outer sensors detect massive energy buildups in their fleet positions. They are preparing for final approach. Perhaps 6 months, maybe less. Marcus whistled low. 6 months to prepare the entire galaxy for invasion? That's impossible. Not impossible, Zara said slowly, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place in her mind. Difficult, but not impossible. We don't need to prepare everyone at once. We need to prepare the right people. She walked to the edge of the chamber where floating displays showed the current positions of every major fleet in the galaxy. The Galactic Council maintained naval forces, but they were scattered across hundreds of systems, designed for peacekeeping and patrol duty, not coordinated warfare. The Council will never move fast enough, Yarthan observed. Too many competing interests, too much bureaucracy. By the time they finish debating deployment strategies, the Devourers will have consumed half the rim worlds. Then we don't ask the Council, Zara said, her mind racing through possibilities. We ask the people who actually fight. She turned back to the sphere, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. Guardian Archive, I need you to send a message to every human ship captain, every human military commander, every human colony defense coordinator in the galaxy. What message, daughter? Zara took a deep breath. Tell them that humanity has been chosen as the new guardians of the galaxy. Tell them that an ancient enemy is returning, one that will consume everything we've built unless we stand against it. Tell them that we have 6 months to prepare for the fight of our lives. Marcus grabbed her arm. Zara, you can't just declare humanity the galactic police force. The other species will never accept it. They don't have to accept it, she replied. They just have to survive long enough to see that we're serious about protecting them. The sphere pulsed brightly. The message has been sent. But words alone will not be enough. They will need proof that humanity carries the authority of the Guardians. What kind of proof? The kind that will make Ambassador Thexmore very unhappy, Yarthan said with what might have been a smile. The chamber shuddered, and Zara felt something massive awakening beneath their feet. Deep in the hall's foundations, systems that had been dormant for 10,000 years came online with a thrumming that she could feel in her bones. The forge, the Guardian voice announced. The construction facility where we built our greatest weapons and ships. It has been waiting for new hands to guide it. The floor beneath them turned transparent, revealing a vast manufacturing complex stretching down for miles. Assembly lines that could build starships from raw energy. Foundries that could forge weapons from the quantum foam itself. Design systems that could take a single thought and turn it into reality. My grandmother always said our family had a duty to protect something important, Zara murmured, staring down at the awakening facility. She was talking about this, wasn't she? Your grandmother was one of the first humans to receive the dreams, Yarthan confirmed. We planted the seeds of knowledge and selected bloodlines, hoping that when the time came they would know where to look. Marcus was shaking his head. This is insane. You're talking about rebuilding Guardian technology, taking on an invasion fleet, basically declaring war on forces that destroyed a civilization that was already thousands of years more advanced than us. Yes, Zara said simply. That's exactly what I'm talking about. She could feel the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders like a cloak made of starlight and responsibility. Somewhere out there, human ship captains were receiving impossible messages about ancient duties and coming darkness. Some would dismiss the communications as hoaxes. Others would ignore them entirely, but some would listen. Some would remember the stories passed down through their families about humanity's true purpose among the stars. Some would feel the same pull that had brought Zara to this chamber. The same certainty that this was what they had been born to do. Guardian Archive, she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was asking. I accept the responsibility. Teach me how to use the forge. Show me how to build ships that can stand against the darkness. And teach me how to find others who will stand with us, she added, thinking of the message spreading across human space. Because we're going to need every single person who's willing to fight for something bigger than themselves. The sphere descended again, coming to rest just above her head. This time, when the knowledge flowed into her mind, Zara was ready for it. She opened herself to the stream of information, letting it reshape her understanding of physics, engineering, and the delicate art of forging weapons capable of holding back the night. 3 weeks after Zara's message spread across human space, the first ships began arriving at the coordinates the Guardian Archive had provided. She stood on the observation deck of the newly activated station, watching vessels drop out of FTL in flashes of twisted starlight. They weren't the sleek military cruisers she had expected. Instead, her call had been answered by merchant captains, colony transport pilots, mining barge operators, and freight haulers. The kind of people who spent their lives moving between the stars, far from the comfortable safety of planetary surfaces. Interesting response, Marcus observed, joining her at the viewport. He wore the blue uniform of the Galactic Council's diplomatic corps, but the insignia on his collar now showed the silver star and void symbol that the Archive had designated for the new Guardian forces. They understand, Zara replied, watching as a massive ore hauler maneuvered toward the station's docking ring. Politicians and career military officers think in terms of territory and resources. But these people know what it means to be alone in the dark between stars. They know what's worth protecting. The station itself had grown dramatically since the forge awakened. What had been a simple archive chamber was now a sprawling complex of manufacturing bays, training facilities, and living quarters. The Guardian technology worked faster than anything in current galactic civilization. Entire sections of the Station materialized from quantum foam and raw energy in a matter of hours. Captain Sarah Rodriguez of the merchant vessel. Lucky Strike requesting permission to dock. Came a voice over the communication system. I got a message about joining something called the Guardian Corps. Zara smiled. The name had emerged naturally as more humans arrived. They weren't an army or a navy in any traditional sense. They were something new, something that grew from humanity's unique perspective on what it meant to explore the galaxy. Permission granted. Captain Rodriguez. The station's AI responded in a warm voice that somehow managed to sound both ancient and friendly. Dock at Ring 7. Welcome to Haven Station. That was another name that had emerged organically. The expanding station needed an identity, and Haven captured what they were trying to build. Not a fortress or a weapon, but a safe harbor in the storm that was coming. The Corvani delegation is requesting another meeting, Marcus informed her, consulting his datapad. Thexmore is particularly insistent about discussing humanity's illegal occupation of Guardian territory. Let him wait, Zara said absently, her attention focused on something more important. Yarthan, what's the status of the outer sensor network? The Vextai counselor materialized beside them with the silent grace his species was known for. 17 sensor platforms are now online, providing early warning coverage for this entire galactic sector. The Forge has exceeded all our projections for production speed. Good. We'll need every second of warning time we can get. Zara turned away from the viewport and headed toward the command center, Marcus and Yarthan following. How many ships do we have operational? 43 vessels have completed the Guardian upgrade process, the station AI reported as they entered the bustling command center. All captains have successfully integrated with the new navigation and weapons systems. An additional 26 ships are currently in the upgrade bays. The upgrades were the real miracle. The Forge hadn't just been building new technology. It had been retrofitting the arriving human ships with Guardian systems. Energy shields that could deflect weapons that hadn't been invented yet, FTL drives that could jump impossible distances, and weapons that fired concentrated starlight instead of simple plasma. But the most important upgrade was invisible. A neural interface that connected each ship's captain directly to the Guardian Archive's tactical network. Dozens of human minds linked together, sharing information and coordinating strategy at the speed of thought. Captain Chen called out a familiar voice. Zara turned to see Captain Rodriguez approaching, still wearing her merchant uniform, but now carrying herself with the confident posture of someone who had touched something greater than herself. Sarah, Zara greeted her warmly. How does the new ship feel? Like flying a dream, Rodriguez replied, her eyes bright with excitement. The Lucky Strike was always a reliable old hauler, but now I can feel the engines thinking, if that makes sense. And the tactical display shows me things I never knew were there. The ship's AI has been upgraded with Guardian tactical algorithms, Yarthan explained. It can process spatial relationships and enemy movement patterns far beyond organic capability. Rodriguez nodded enthusiastically. I understand why you called us together now. This isn't about military conquest or political power. This is about having the tools we need to protect the people who can't protect themselves. That was what made the difference, Zara realized. Other species saw the Guardian legacy as a privilege to be claimed, a source of authority and power. But humans saw it as a responsibility to be shouldered, a job that needed doing. Captain, Marcus interrupted, we're receiving a priority communication from Earth Central Command. Zara sighed. Earth's military leadership had been sending increasingly urgent messages demanding that she return to Earth immediately for debriefing and evaluation. They didn't understand that the Guardian Corps couldn't be controlled by any single government or military structure. Put it through, she said, Admiral. Harrison's face appeared on the main screen, his expression stern with barely controlled anger. Captain Chen, you are ordered to return to Earth immediately. Your unauthorized actions have created a diplomatic crisis with the Galactic Council. With respect, Admiral, Zara replied calmly. I'm no longer operating under Earth Central Command's authority. The Guardian Corps operates independently of all planetary governments. You can't simply declare independence from human authority. I'm not declaring independence from humanity, Zara corrected. I'm declaring humanity's independence from the limitations that have held us back. We have 6 months before the Devourer fleet arrives. I'm not going to waste time in committee meetings while worlds die. Admiral Harrison's face flushed red. The Galactic Council has legitimate concerns about this Guardian technology falling into the wrong hands. The technology isn't falling into anyone's hands, Zara said firmly. It's returning to its proper purpose. The Guardians created this legacy to protect the galaxy, not to prop up political systems that are too slow and bureaucratic to handle real threats. She gestured toward the command center, where dozens of human captains worked alongside alien advisors, their movements coordinated by the neural link network. Look around, Admiral. This is what cooperation looks like when it's not filtered through layers of political posturing. You're making a mistake. Chen, the Council will tolerate whatever it has to, interrupted a new voice. Ambassador Thexmore's reptilian form slithered into view beside Admiral Harrison, his 4 eyes gleaming with cold calculation. Because the moment your Guardian Corps fails to stop this supposed invasion, humanity will be held responsible for every death that follows. Zara felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Are you threatening human colonies, Ambassador? I am stating political reality, Thexmore replied smoothly. You have claimed authority over galactic defense. Success will make you heroes. Failure will make you responsible for the greatest disaster in galactic history. The communication ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Around them, the Guardian Corps members continued their work, but Zara could feel their anxiety through the neural link. He's not wrong, Marcus said quietly. If we fail, humanity will be blamed for everything that follows. Then we don't fail, Zara said simply. Guardian Archive, what's the current status of the Devourer fleet? The ancient consciousness responded immediately. Long-range sensors detect increased energy signatures in 17 fleet positions. The enemy is beginning final preparation for galactic insertion. Estimated time to first contact, 4 months, 12 days. Zara looked around the command center, taking in the faces of the people who had answered her call. Merchants and haulers, miners and salvage operators, colony defense pilots and freight runners, not the heroes of legend, but the people who kept civilization running while others made speeches about it. Then we have 4 months to become something the galaxy has never seen before, she announced. Not conquerors or rulers, but guardians in the truest sense of the word. The Devourers are coming to consume everything we've built. Our job is to stand in their way. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the command center. What do you need us to do? Zara smiled, feeling the weight of destiny settling comfortably on her shoulders. Learn to fly like angels and fight like devils. Because when the darkness comes, we're going to be the light that holds it back. The first Devourer scout ships crossed into the galactic rim 2 days ahead of schedule, their dark hulls absorbing light like holes in space itself. Captain Sarah Rodriguez was on patrol duty in the outer system when her upgraded sensors detected the impossible. Ships that registered as negative mass, as if they were made from concentrated void. Haven Station, this is Lucky Strike, she transmitted, her voice steady despite the ice water running through her veins. I have contact with unknown vessels at grid reference 77 Alpha. They're not showing up properly on scanners. Confirmed, Lucky Strike, came Zara's voice through the neural link, calm and focused. All Guardian Corps units, we have first contact with Devourer forces. Execute Protocol 1. Around the galaxy, 43 ships received the signal simultaneously. The neural network that connected all Guardian Corps members suddenly blazed with shared tactical information. Overlapping sensor data and something else, the steady, unshakable determination of people who had found their purpose. Rodriguez felt her ship's AI reaching out to link with the others, creating a web of consciousness that spanned dozens of star systems. Through the link, she could feel Captain Martinez patrolling the Centauri sector, Commander Singh defending the trade routes near Vega, and dozens of others standing ready. Target analysis coming through the network, Zara's voice continued. The scouts are testing our response times and defensive capabilities. Do not engage directly. Shadow them and gather intelligence. Rodriguez watched as 3 Devourer ships moved through space in formation, their movements wrong in ways that her enhanced perception could barely process. They seemed to slide between dimensions, appearing in one place and then simply existing somewhere else without crossing the intervening space. They're not using conventional FTL, she reported. It's more like they're stepping through tiers in space-time. Confirmed. responded Commander Chen from the heavy cruiser Aurora. I'm seeing the same thing from my position. These ships are operating on physics principles we don't understand. But the Guardian Archive does, Zara replied. Through the neural link, Rodriguez felt knowledge flowing from the ancient consciousness to all connected minds. Tactical data about devourer movement patterns, weapon capabilities, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The devourers fed on fear and despair, drawing power from the terror of dying civilizations. Their ships were designed to be overwhelming, impossible, nightmare made real. But the Guardian technology offered something they had never encountered before. Minds linked in perfect coordination, sharing courage and determination instead of spreading panic. They're moving toward the Kepler colonies, Rodriguez observed, tracking the scout ship's trajectory. Civilian population of about 12 million. Guardian Core Fleet Alpha converge on Kepler system, Zara commanded. We're not going to let them test their weapons on civilians. Rodriguez felt her ship respond to the command even before her conscious mind processed it. The Guardian upgrades included not just technology but training downloaded directly into the pilot's neural pathways. She knew how to fight these things, even though she'd never seen them before. The Lucky Strike jumped to FTL, but not with the familiar wrench and twist of normal spacefold drives. Instead, it felt like diving into a river of starlight, following paths through space that hadn't existed moments before. Around her, she could feel the other Guardian ships doing the same thing, all of them following routes calculated by the Archive to arrive at Kepler simultaneously. They dropped out of FTL in perfect formation around the Devourer scouts. 21 Guardian ships materializing from hyperspace in a coordinated ambush that would have been impossible without the neural link. Attention Devourer vessels. Zara's voice broadcast on all frequencies. You are in violation of Galactic Council space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came not in words, but in a wave of pure malevolence that crashed against the Guardian ship's shields like a psychic tsunami. Rodriguez felt her mind recoil from the contact. These things didn't just want to destroy human civilization. They wanted to feast on its death agonies. They're trying to break our neural link, Commander Chen reported, his mental voice strained. Some kind of fear-based attack. Hold the formation, Zara commanded. Remember your training. Fear is just information about danger, not a command to surrender. Rodriguez felt the truth of those words settle into her mind. The Devourers were terrifying, but terror was just another tactical consideration. Through the neural link, she could feel the steady courage of her fellow pilots, their shared determination creating a barrier against the psychic assault. All units, weapons free, Zara ordered. Let's show them what Guardian technology can do. The Lucky Strike's new weapon systems came online with a sound like singing crystals. Instead of the crude plasma bolts of conventional weapons, the Guardian guns fired concentrated beams of stellar energy, literally bottled starlight given destructive form. The combined fire from 21 ships struck the lead Devourer vessel simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the dark hull began to crack like an eggshell, brilliant light streaming through the fissures as the concentrated starfire ate through whatever material the ship was made from. Direct hit, Rodriguez shouted, feeling victory surge through the neural link. Their armor can't handle coordinated fire from Guardian weapons. But her celebration was premature. The damaged Devourer ship didn't explode or retreat. Instead, it began to change shape, its hull flowing like liquid metal as it absorbed the energy from their attack and converted it into something else entirely. Energy signature is spiking, Commander Singh reported from his position. That thing is getting stronger. The transformed Devourer ship lashed out with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Captain Martinez's ship, the Frontier Spirit, took a direct hit and simply ceased to exist for several seconds before reappearing with massive hull breaches. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Zara commanded. The Archive is updating our tactical database. These aren't just warships, they're adaptive predators. The more we feed them, the stronger they become. Rodriguez felt her ship twist through impossible angles as the Guardian FTL drive allowed her to dodge attacks that moved faster than light. Around her, the other Guardian ships danced through space in patterns that would have been suicide with conventional technology. New data coming through the link, Zara announced. The Devourers can adapt to energy weapons, but they have trouble with kinetic impacts. All ships, switch to railguns and missile systems. The Guardian ships adjusted their attack pattern, trading elegant energy beams for crude but effective physical projectiles. Suddenly, the Devourer scouts were struggling to adapt, their hulls cracking under impacts they couldn't absorb and convert. "It's working," Chen reported as his missiles tore through a scout's shifting armor. "They can eat energy, but solid matter still hurts them." The battle turned quickly after that. The 3 Devourer scouts, deprived of the fear and energy they needed to maintain their adaptive defenses, began to retreat toward the galactic rim. The Guardian ships pursued them relentlessly, pouring kinetic fire into their hulls until all 3 vessels broke apart in showers of dark metal and escaping gases. "Kepler system is secure," Zara announced as the last Devourer wreckage tumbled into the system's outer asteroid belt. All Guardian ships returned to base for damage assessment and tactical debriefing. But Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. Through the neural link, she could feel the Archive's ancient consciousness analyzing the battle data, preparing for what was coming next. The scouts had been just a test. Somewhere beyond the rim, the main Devourer fleet was receiving the tactical information gathered by their advance forces. Now they knew that the galaxy had new defenders, Guardians who could stand against their adaptive technology and coordinated psychic attacks. The real war was about to begin. "All Guardian Corps members," Zara's voice came through the link, carrying the weight of prophecy. "Prepare for full-scale invasion. The Devourers know we exist now. They'll be coming with everything they have." Rodriguez felt her ship's AI already plotting courses back to Haven Station, but she also felt something else through the neural link. The quiet satisfaction of people who had found their calling. They had stood against the darkness and won their first battle. Now they had to prove they could win the war. The main Devourer fleet arrived like a plague of metal locusts, thousands of ships pouring through dimensional rifts at 17 different points along the galactic rim. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, their dark hulls crackling with energies that made reality itself seem unstable. Zara stood in Haven Station's command center, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The early warning sensors the Guardian Corps had deployed were working perfectly, giving them precious hours of advance notice. Around her, 200 Guardian captains worked in perfect coordination through the neural link, their individual ships scattered across dozens of star systems, but their minds united in common purpose. "Fleet positions confirmed," reported Captain Rodriguez from her new command. The heavy cruiser Defiance. The Forge had been working around the clock, converting merchant vessels into ships of war while building entirely new classes of Guardian warships. 17 entry points, estimated 1,200 vessels per fleet group. "Over 20,000 ships," Marcus observed, his face pale as he studied the display. "Even with all our upgrades, we only have 200 operational vessels." "Numbers aren't everything," Zara replied, her attention focused on the patterns emerging from the neural link's shared intelligence. "The Devourers are expecting to face the same kind of resistance that defeated the original Guardians, individual ships and fleets fighting desperately but without coordination. What they're getting instead is something that's never existed before," added Yarthan, his ancient eyes bright with anticipation. "A distributed intelligence network capable of processing tactical information across galactic distances in real time." The first contact came at the outer colonies, where the Devourer fleets began their advance into populated space. Local defense forces opened fire immediately, their primitive weapons barely scratching the massive invasion ships. Within minutes, 3 entire star systems went dark as the Devourers fed on the terror and life force of dying worlds. "Guardian Corps Fleet Delta, you are cleared for engagement," Zara announced through the neural link. "Remember, kinetic weapons only, coordinated fire patterns, and don't let them feed on your fear." Captain Singh's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Command. Delta Fleet moving to intercept. All ships. Weapons hot and ready." Zara felt the battle begin through the neural connection, experiencing it from 20 different perspectives simultaneously. The Guardian ships moved like a school of fish, each vessel responding to threats and opportunities with perfect coordination. When the Devourers tried their psychic fear attacks, they met minds that were linked together, sharing courage and determination instead of isolated terror. Direct hit on lead vessel. Singh reported as his fleet concentrated fire on a single target. Their adaptive armor is struggling to handle simultaneous kinetic impacts from multiple vectors. But even as the Guardian forces scored their first victories, Zara could see the larger strategic picture. The Devourers weren't just trying to conquer the galaxy. They were trying to feed on it, consuming the life force of entire civilizations to fuel their continued expansion. Command, this is Captain Martinez on the outer perimeter, came an urgent transmission. I'm reading massive energy buildups in the Devourer fleet positions. They're preparing some kind of superweapon. The tactical display shifted, showing readings from the Guardian sensor network. Deep in the heart of each Devourer fleet, massive vessels were drawing energy from their surrounding ships, building towards something that would dwarf anything the galaxy had ever seen. World killers, Yarthan breathed, recognizing the readings. The Devourer's ultimate weapon. They drain entire fleets to power a single shot, capable of cracking planets from orbit. How long until they're ready to fire? Zara asked, based on current energy accumulation rates. Perhaps 4 hours. Marcus turned to her with desperate eyes. Zara, there are 50 billion people in the core systems alone. If those weapons fire, they won't, Zara said with quiet certainty. Guardian Archive, I need a complete tactical analysis of the Devourer fleet positions and energy distribution networks. The ancient consciousness responded immediately, flooding her mind with information. She could see the pattern now, the way energy flowed between ships in each fleet, the critical nodes that controlled the power distribution, the vulnerable points where a coordinated strike could cause cascade failures. All Guardian Core units, new mission parameters, she announced through the neural link. We're not going to fight their fleets ship by ship. We're going to cut their power sources. The plan that emerged was impossibly complex, synchronized attacks on 17 different targets across multiple star systems, each strike timed to the nanosecond to prevent the Devourers from adapting their defenses. It would require every ship in the Guardian Core working in perfect harmony, their movements coordinated by the neural link network. This is insane, Captain Chen muttered through the connection. We're talking about attacking the most heavily defended positions in each fleet simultaneously. Insane is letting them finish charging those world killers, Rodriguez replied grimly. I'd rather die fighting than watch them burn down everything we're trying to protect. Then we don't die, Zara said simply. We use every advantage we have. Guardian technology, neural coordination, and the one thing the Devourers can't understand or adapt to. Which is? Human stubbornness. They're expecting us to be afraid, to act like victims waiting for rescue. Instead, we're going to hit them so hard and so fast that they won't have time to figure out what happened. The attack began simultaneously across 17 star systems. Guardian ships materialized from hyperspace at impossible angles, their approach vectors calculated by the Archive to exploit gaps in Devourer sensor coverage. Instead of the chaotic dogfights that conventional warfare would produce, the battle unfolded with the precision of a ballet performed at relativistic speeds. Zara experienced it all through the neural link. Captain Rodriguez's defiance threading through the void between capital ships to strike at a power coupling node. Commander Singh's squadron using the gravity well of a gas giant to slingshot into the heart of a Devourer formation. Captain Martinez leading a desperate charge directly into the teeth of a defensive perimeter to reach a critical energy relay. Target acquired, Rodriguez reported, her ship's weapons locking onto the massive energy conduit that fed power to half the Devourer fleet. Beginning attack run. The Defiance dove toward its target like a bird of prey, Guardian weapons firing in precise bursts that overloaded the conduit's protective systems. Behind it, 3 other Guardian ships followed the same approach vector, their combined firepower concentrated on a single critical point. Direct hit, Rodriguez shouted as the conduit exploded in a cascade of released energy. Power distribution is breaking down across the entire fleet group. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out at 16 other targets. The Devourers, caught completely off guard by the coordinated assault, struggled to adapt their defenses. But the Guardian ships were already gone, vanishing back into hyperspace before enemy weapons could acquire target locks. Energy levels in all world killer weapons are dropping rapidly, Yar then reported from his position at the tactical display. The cascade failures are spreading through their power networks faster than they can compensate. But the victory came with a price. 7 Guardian ships had been lost in the attacks, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to ensure the mission's success. Zara felt their deaths through the neural link. Brave souls who had given everything to protect people they would never meet on worlds they would never see. All surviving Guardian units returned to base for regrouping, she announced, her voice heavy with loss and pride. Mission accomplished. The world killers are neutralized. For now, Marcus added grimly. They'll adapt to this strategy. Next time they'll be ready for coordinated attacks. Then next time we'll use a different strategy, Zara replied. The Guardian Archive contains 10,000 years of tactical knowledge. We have options they haven't imagined yet. She looked around the command center, taking in the faces of the people who had answered humanity's call to stand guard over the galaxy. They had won their first major victory against the Devourers, but the war was far from over. Through the neural link, she could feel the determination of every remaining Guardian captain. They had tasted victory against impossible odds, and now they knew that the darkness could be held back. The galaxy's new Guardians were just getting started. 1 year after the first Devourer assault, Zara stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Assembly Hall on Centauri Prime. The chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species, their faces showing mixtures of gratitude, fear, and political calculation. At the center of the room, Ambassador Thexmore coiled his serpentine body in what she had learned to recognize as aggressive posturing. The question before us today, Thexmore announced to the Assembly, is whether the Galactic Council will formally recognize the so-called Guardian Corps as a legitimate military organization, or declare it an illegal human supremacist movement. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. In the year since the Devourer invasion began, the Guardian Corps had grown from 200 ships to over 2,000, with human volunteers arriving from every corner of the galaxy. They had fought 17 major engagements against Devourer fleets, saving dozens of worlds and billions of lives. They had also completely upended the existing power structure of galactic civilization. The humans ask us to simply accept their claim to Guardian authority, Thexmore continued, his 4 eyes fixed on Zara. But what proof do we have that they are anything more than an aggressive species using stolen technology to impose their will? Zara remained silent, letting the ambassador speak his piece. Around her she could feel the presence of other Guardian Corps members through the neural link. Captain Rodriguez commanding a patrol fleet in the Outer Rim, Commander Singh defending the trade routes, hundreds of others standing watch over the galaxy's vulnerable points. The proof, interjected Councillor Yarthen, rising from his seat among the Vextai delegation, lies in their actions rather than their claims. The ancient diplomat activated a holographic display showing battle recordings from the past year. Ships with Guardian technology working in perfect coordination, protecting civilian evacuations under impossible circumstances, standing between Devourer fleets and populated worlds even when victory seemed hopeless. The Guardian Corps has asked for nothing, Yarthen continued. No territorial concessions, no trade advantages, no political authority over other species. They have simply appointed themselves as the galaxy's protectors and proceeded to protect it. Appointed themselves, Thexmore hissed. Exactly the problem. No one elected them to this position. No one elected the original Guardians either, observed Councillor Velnara of the Crystalline Shard High. Yet for 10,000 years we have benefited from the legacy they left behind. Zara finally stood, her movement cutting through the political debate like a blade. Honored councillors, you're arguing about the wrong question. The chamber fell silent, hundreds of alien faces turning toward her. You want to know if humanity has the right to claim Guardian authority? She continued. But the real question is whether the galaxy can afford to reject it. She activated her own display, showing current Devourer fleet positions. Right now there are over 50,000 enemy ships operating in our galaxy. They've consumed the life force of 300 worlds and show no signs of slowing down. Without the Guardian Corps holding them back, they would have reached the core systems months ago. The humans could have done this with conventional military forces, Thexmore argued. There was no need to claim ancient authority. No, we couldn't have, Zara replied firmly. Conventional forces think in terms of territory and conquest. They fight to win battles and claim victory. The Devourers feed on that kind of thinking. They grow stronger when faced with armies trying to defeat them through superior firepower. She gestured to the battle recording still playing on Yarthen's display. Guardian Corps tactics work because we're not trying to conquer or control anything. We're trying to protect people. Every ship captain in our fleet volunteered not for glory or profit, but because they believe some things are worth dying for. Pretty words, sneered another voice from the assembly. But how do we know you won't turn those weapons against us once the Devourer threat is ended? The question came from Counselor Rexithane of the militant Crover Empire, a species that had spent centuries trying to expand their territory through military force. Zara had been expecting this challenge, because, she said quietly, Guardian technology doesn't work that way. She touched a control on her wrist, and suddenly the chamber was filled with the presence of the Guardian Archive itself. The ancient consciousness spoke directly to the assembled delegates, its voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years. The weapons and ships we have provided to humanity are not tools of conquest, the Archive explained. They respond only to minds focused on protection rather than aggression. Attempts to use Guardian technology for territorial expansion or political domination result in immediate system shutdown. Impossible, Rexthane sputtered. No technology can read intentions. Guardian technology can, Yarthen confirmed. I have observed multiple attempts by various military organizations to reverse engineer captured Guardian weapons. In every case, the devices became completely inert when tested for offensive applications. The Archive's presence grew stronger, filling the chamber with an almost tangible sense of ancient wisdom. We learned from our own mistakes. The original Guardians fell because we placed too much faith in good intentions without safeguarding against corruption of purpose. This time, we built protection into the technology itself. Zara felt a surge of communication through the neural link. Urgent messages from Guardian Corps ships scattered across the galaxy. She listened for a moment, then looked up at the assembly with grim satisfaction. Honored counselors, this debate has become academic. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Devourer fleet movement. They're converging on the Centauri system. Panic rippled through the chamber as the implications sank in. Centauri Prime was the political heart of galactic civilization, home to billions and the seat of the Galactic Council itself. How many ships? Rexithane demanded, his earlier hostility replaced by stark fear. Approximately 8,000 vessels, Zara replied. They'll reach the outer system in 6 hours. 8,000. Thexmore's voice was a strangled hiss. The local defense fleet has perhaps 50 ships. Which is why, Zara said calmly, I've already ordered all available Guardian Corps units to converge on Centauri. We'll have 400 ships here within the hour. 400 against 8,000? Rexthane was doing rapid mental calculations. Even with your superior technology, those odds are impossible. The odds don't matter, Zara replied. This is what we trained for. This is why the Guardian Corps exists. Through the neural link, she could feel her fellow captains responding to the call. Captain Rodriguez was already en route from the outer rim, her new flagship blazing through hyperspace at speeds that would have been impossible without Guardian FTL technology. Commander Singh was leading a battle group from the Vega sector, their ships loaded with the latest weapons from the Forge. Hundreds of others were converging on Centauri from across the galaxy, leaving their patrol zones and defensive positions to protect the heart of civilization. You're abandoning defensive positions across the galaxy, observed Counselor Velnara with something that might have been admiration. If you fail here, the Devourers will have clear runs at dozens of other systems. If we fail here, those other systems won't matter, Zara replied. The Devourers aren't just trying to conquer the galaxy, they're trying to break its spirit. If Centauri falls, if the Council is destroyed, then fear and despair will do more damage than their fleets ever could. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had spent centuries debating humanity's place in galactic civilization. The vote you were planning to take doesn't matter anymore, she said simply. In 6 hours, the Devourers will be here. The Guardian Corps will stand between them and this world, not because any government authorized us to, but because it's the right thing to do. And if we survive, she added, heading toward the chamber's exit, you can spend the next century arguing about whether we had the legal authority to save your lives. As alarms began sounding across Centauri Prime, and the planet's defense forces scrambled to prepare for the impossible, Zara made her way to the spaceport where her ship waited. Through the neural link, she could feel the determination of every Guardian Corps member converging on the system. They were outnumbered, 20-1. The enemy had weapons that could crack planets and armor that adapted to any attack. The odds of success were mathematically negligible, but they were humanity's gift to the galaxy, stubborn, idealistic, and absolutely convinced that some things were worth dying for. The Devourers were about to learn what happened when they threatened something the Guardian Corps had sworn to protect. The last and greatest battle for the galaxy was about to begin.